Hello and welcome to the PupMommy. This is a second of a two-part video series that I'm doing about shelter dogs because October is, of course, Adopt a Shelter Dog Month. Now, to me, it's very important that when you adopt a dog, or even before you adopt a dog, that you know exactly what you're getting into and what you're in for. And it's one thing to adopt a dog from a rescue group or a breeder, but it's entirely a different situation when you're adopting a dog from a shelter, because the shelter dogs are a different experience. Doesn't mean it's a bad experience, it just means that it's different. And in part one, I took you through what to consider when you're at the shelter. Now, in part two, I'm going to take you through, okay, you found a dog. Now, what are you in for when you bring it home? What can you expect? So let's get started. All right, now let's assume for a moment that you have found your perfect dog, all right, and you're on your way home. I highly suggest that on your way home, you do not stop at PetSmart, you do not stop at Petco or any other store, because I know that there may be the inclination there that you want to stop, you want to, get your dog some toys or the dog food. No. I highly suggest you don't do that. Why? Because no matter what they told you at the shelter, you still do not know how that dog is really going to interact with other dogs at the store, or even interact with dogs and other people. So don't necessarily do that. When you get the dog into the car, immediately go home. Another thing to keep in mind is to, when you get home, or even prior to getting home, contact your veterinarian and make an appointment. Have the dog checked out, and veterinarians are pretty good at assessing dogs overall. So you're going to have a second opinion on your pup. But it's also good to know that your dog is healthy, or if it needs any supplements or anything else that can be provided. When you bring your adopted dog home, a couple of things. First, do you have children? And second, do you have another dog? Because if you have another dog, well, let's take that one first. You should have had that dog do a meet and greet with your new dog at the shelter. Okay, that's great if you did. If not, if it was not possible, then your dog is meeting this new dog for the first time. Hopefully there is a blend of temperaments. Remember in the first video I said what's most important in adopting a dog is temperament and energy level activity. Now, I suggest that you have an area of your home that is cordoned off, where the dogs can meet each other, see each other, but they're not going to be able to come into contact necessarily with each other. That's very important. How you also handle the adopted dog is going to be sending signals to your own dog as to what to expect. You need to make sure that your own dog knows that this new one is going to be a member of the family, is valued by you. So you should be holding your new dog, you should be petting it, you should be talking to it, you should be comforting it. And then slowly, it might be a little noisy, but that's to be expected. Might be a little barking, that's to be expected. And there's also going to be a lot of sniffing. So very gradually introduce the dogs. It may have to be over the period of an hour, maybe a couple of hours, and you never know. There are some dogs that just naturally take to each other. With my dogs that I've introduced over a period of time, I've had to have one crated for a good few hours. I had to actually calm another one down and stop it from barking. But eventually when they see that, the dynamics of the pack are changing and that the dogs aren't necessarily a threat to each other, they kind of get to the point where they're meeting and greeting on their own terms. And they kind of have to sort themselves out. All right, but there should never be such a blatant difference in temperament that you're going to have dogs attacking each other. That is you don't want that to happen at all, and you never should have brought really a dog into the environment. If you see something like that happening, put the dog in another room, try the meet and greet all over again after another few hours, after another day or so, and if it still is not working out, then I will tell you this. It's, as much as you don't want to take the dog back, You also don't want blood in your house. You don't want dog fights in your house. You know, you're going to be able to, or you should be able to, and others are going to be able to assess whether or not that dog really is a good fit. Now, if by chance you have children, especially toddlers and small little dogs, that's my German Shepherd. I don't know why she's doing that, but she is. But anyway, if you happen to have children in the home, especially if they're small children and toddlers, very important to set expectations when you bring the dog home as to their behavior. All right, they're going to be excited, there's going to be a lot of activity going around, but remember that the dog comes first. All right, so you should be holding that dog in your arms, or the dog should be at your side. And you should have prepared your children for when the dog comes home. Now, especially too, when the children want to pet the dog, I suggest what you do instead of petting the dog over the head or petting the dog over its body, show your children to do this, to basically cup their hand and put their hand in front of the dog, let the dog sniff. All right, let the dog come to them and let the dog sniff the hand, sniff the wrist. And one of the reasons why is it keeps the fingers safe. All right, and basically the dog is meeting the children also on its own terms. And as the dog and the children start to get more familiar with each other, then you can begin to gradually let them touch the dog and also watch the dog as the children are touching it. And make sure that it's a very calm pet, that the children are calm and talking to the dog as well. That's going to help with the acclimation. Another thing to think about is when you bring your dog home, don't give the dog the entire run of the house. Whether you live in 900 square feet or you live in 9,000 square feet, dog should not have the run of the house because that's going to be totally overwhelming for it. One thing that you can do when the dog does come home, of course, let the dog explore. Let the dog explore the areas of the home that you want the dog in. All right? You know, you can keep it on a leash, or you can let the dog free roam, you know, through the areas of the home. You're going to find that some dogs, depending on their past experiences, they may find a place behind the sofa or behind the chair that they're going to cuddle up and they're going to sit there. They can find a corner in the bathroom, they can find a corner in the bedroom. You never know where, you know, you've got a dog bed, you've got a crate, but you know, they're into their own sense of they have to find their own security. So don't be surprised if something like that doesn't happen. And also, you know, there are some dogs that are going to come into the house. They're going to be, you know, meeting you, meeting your children, meeting the other dogs, like they've lived there for years, and you're just going to blend in perfectly, and that's great. But that's not always what's going to happen. You are going to have dogs that need to decompress. They may not eat for a day. They may not eat for 2 days. They may be just simply hiding in a corner until they feel safe and secure. Because remember that some shelter dogs, especially the ones that have been adopted and returned, they don't know you. They don't know what's really going on. This is a whole new environment to them. And even if they've lived with families and children before, still it's different. Your situation, your home is entirely different from that dog. So you're basically operating on the dog's timetable, not necessarily your own. Now, as your dog is acclimating in your home, another thing to really, really important, underline important, training. Keep in mind that 96% of the dogs that have been in shelters have received no training whatsoever. And that's according to a research study that was done over a year by I don't know, the Journal of something or other. It's on Pet Finder's website as to why people surrender dogs. Well, they found that with surrendered dogs, 96% had no training. So the moment that the dog is coming into your home, You are setting rules and boundaries. You should know ahead of time as to, are you going to allow the dog on the sofa or the chairs? Are you going to allow the dog in the bed? Or is the dog always going to be on the floor? And in what areas of the home? You have an established routine. The dog has to learn that routine. When you're taking the dog out, when you're exercising, when you're playing, when you're practicing your training, when you're feeding, when you're sleeping, napping, I mean the whole litany. Because remember, dogs are four-legged children. Puppies are four-legged babies. All right, we need structure. So you're going to be able to see initially from the intake form at the shelter, and then also when the dog is in your home. Doesn't know sit, stay, come, down, leave it. All right? If it does not, make sure you have a training plan in place. There are plenty of videos out there that you can refer to, and there are also so many private trainers that are able to work with you. Whether you go to PetSmart, Petco, or your own trainer that you happen to find or that you've used before, don't hesitate to set up a training schedule and a training plan, because that is going to also help in the success of not only training you, training your family, but also training the dog so that you have a long, wonderful history. So I think that's it. I probably am going, after this video is now ended, I'm going to think of at least 5 different things I could have added to the video, but the video is long enough, right? So if you have any comments or questions, I'll leave my contact information in the description section, along with links to my website, where I have an ebook that is available called To Puppy or Not to Puppy that can help you decide whether or not you even want a puppy or a dog. And then I also have another freebie that is breeder, rescue, or shelter. Which route is for you? And I take you through 6 different categories of the differences between a breeder, a rescue, and a shelter, so that you can determine the optimal path for you and or your family when adopting a dog and bringing a dog into your life. All right, so thank you again very much for watching. I do appreciate it. Don't forget to like and click subscribe so you'll know when I post my next videos. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.